Oh, hey there. Thanks for taking a little break, opening up all your chests in Sumeru. Hopefully, after dumping all of your fragile resin, you managed to get a single usable Dendro goblet. I know I didn't, but let's talk a little bit about burgeoning and how to actually make it good. Not just like a good build for Toma, if you want to use Toma, which I think has kind of been out there. I think people see it. It's good. It is a good use for Toma. But I don't know if it's seen as like meta or anything like that. But I do think that there are actually really strong burgeoning teams, and I'm going to look at a couple of them here. The first team, well, really two teams I'll look at, is just going to use one really basic concept, which is we want a trigger for the elemental mastery to explode the burgeoning to have really high elemental mastery, which means naturally using a character that's bringing a ton to the table and already wants elemental mastery. So we're going to be using Kazuha's inclination to absorb Pyro into his burst by sustaining on Bennett's burst. We are going to get, though, huge front-loaded, about 60,000 damage to both enemies from burgeoning there. Then he's going to absorb Pyro, and then I'm going to do another instance because I have a C1, which you might be able to do with Sack Sword. But this is about 120,000 damage front-loaded from Kazuha, just from the reaction damage alone. And if you were doing overloads, and maybe you got like 2 overloads there, you can only hit 1 instance and it's less. So I maybe would have done 20 or 40,000 here and done way more than that. And the only trick here is just to not blow up Dendro MC's burst. Now there, I was able to do it by even still dropping their burst on Bennett's burst. But you can be more safe and do it like this, drop Bennett after. The only risk there is that you do waste some of the seeds by dropping Bennett, which means you would want some elemental mastery on Bennett, or you'll just do less damage with them, which is also fine. But at the end of the day, it is a little bit safer to do it in this way, right? Dropping the Dendro MC's burst and then Bennett after. But I mean, if you're fast enough, it's really not that hard. You'll see I dropped the burst here in Pyro Kazuha's burst and still able to infuse it with Hydro by bursting with Kokomi. So it's not that hard to do. Now, of course, those slots are flexible. I like Kokomi there because she heals through it. She's Hydro. She doesn't benefit much from Bennett. And here's another flex slot using just 2 different characters doing the same kind of thing. And Yellen actually doesn't benefit from Bennett either. Although if you have C6 Bennett, the fact that she's a bow user and never gets Pyro might help her not apply too much Pyro. Although you'll see here my Yellen is C6, so it's not as big of an issue for me. And I just wanted to demonstrate that it's a similar thing, right? Where Kazuha is doing the same thing here, but those 2 slots with the Hydro and Dendro are flexible. And then I want to look at Yoimiya teams, just because I think I've already seen a couple people not be aware that Yoimiya actually has no issue whatsoever detonating burgeoning. And then not just with her burst, although I do want to look at her burst first. You'll see here, now if everything didn't die right away, you'll see 1 instance of the burgeoning damage for 20k. And she would have done 2 instances, so 40,000 from her burst, another 40,000 from burgeoning, but 80,000 just from her burst initial hit alone. And my Yoimiya has under 100 elemental mastery. It's all because of elemental mastery buffs. You can see at range, no issue detonating for 20,000. Now this has Elegy, it has Dendro Resonance, it has Diona C6, but there's also Sapwood Blade, Instructor. There are easily accessible elemental mastery buffs where you can get your Pyro. In my opinion, like Yoimiya is a really great fit here because she gets AoE damage for free, and that's actually pretty significant damage. And obviously those enemies are Hydro, so you'd be replacing Hydro in the party with one of those Dendro, but I just want to show you that it still works here, it's still effective, still get bonus damage. So I just want to recommend it as basically a reaction that I think has been a little bit slept on, has some pretty strong benefits, again adding AoE damage, and it's pretty easy to get really, really strong reaction damage, more so than other reactions like Overload. And yeah, give it a shot. Thanks, like, sub, bye.